Force tired.
The Force is what gives the Jedi his power.
Why is the Force connecting us?
I am a Jedi. Always do, Jedi.
We're a dyad in the Force.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Force Diet Podcast, a Star Wars show covering the latest and greatest from the core worlds to the outer rim. If Star Wars is your space, we are your place. We are honored that you've joined us. Tonight, we're taking a look at what is, for now, the series finale of The Acolyte, titled simply The Acolyte. There's a whole lot of stuff shoved into those final 40 minutes, and if you throw in a cameo or two, it leaves a ton of curiosities. Take a look at the series as a whole and ponder what could have been and if we should get a season 2 or not. Pair that with some general nerd talk and a couple awesome guests, and it's sure to be a fun night. I'm your host, Obi Sean, and riding shotgun is my ride or die co-host, Jedi John. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, we are good. We are good. We're ready.
Yeah, this is a special episode for us. This is our 75th episode, and we are joined tonight. It's not just the two of us. We've got a dynamic duo edition of sorts from the Hyperspace Heroes Podcast. We got Brown Leader and Scruffy. How you guys doing?
Good.
Hello
How's
there.
it going?
Evening, guys. And congratulations on 75. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you very
Very
much.
excited.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming and celebrating with us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
We
Yeah, great. Thanks for having us.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. And we're, of course, missing DB. But what do you guys do? 2468. Who do we appreciate? DB,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, he's a little wore out from his trip.
Yeah, he actually got back. I thought he wasn't getting back till tonight, but he actually got back yesterday. He surprised us at work today. But yeah, he's. You don't get into our age bracket and still have teenagers that you have to take to cheer camp in Biloxi, Mississippi, and not come back not tired. So, kudos to him. He's a good dad. He's a good cheer dad. He fought Grimace and all, and I'll just put it at that. So,
especially if it's, I don't know if he had to drive or if he got to fly, but if that was a
He got to
what's
he
that?
got to fly.
Oh, okay.
he got lucky. He said some people got caught in that thing and had to there was one family that got stuck in Atlanta and ended up having to rent a car and drive the rest of the way. And even some people were having trouble getting home yesterday to leave Biloxi and get home. But yeah, they kind of got in and out without any issues, thankfully.
That's good. Yeah, I was hearing that Delta was still having issues even today. So that was not fun for anybody. End of last week into the weekend. So
No.
So great to have you both on. Before we dive into kind of the meat of the discussion tonight, granted we don't have a whole lot of guests on, but when we do, we try and have a get to know the guest section. So the first question: favorite movie and or television show? Brown Leader, lead us off.
So that's probably the stereotypical answer you hear out of my group, my generation, is Empire. Obviously, is the go-to movie. Mando would be my go-to live stream or TV series, definitely.
Scruff.
I knew that's how he was going to answer that. For me, it's A New Hope. It's the very first thing I saw in the movie, or at the drive-in, actually. So it had the most impact on me. And then I'm still a fan of Bad Batch, man. I still haven't quite recovered from the loss of Tech. My
man.
Still going through Kleenex.
Yep. I'm right there with you. Now, Brown Leader, with Mando, do you have a particular season you like, or are you a full, like, does season 3 kind of bring it down, or are you no? Okay.
No, when it comes to Mando, I'm a Mando stan. I'll self-admit that. Season 3 does not bother me one bit. I'm even Jack Black. I'm okay with that. So,
space croquet for the win.
Exactly. Mando. So He
didn't say Lizzo.
when it comes to
I'm
rank,
concerned.
I'm fine with Lizzo. Absolutely.
That's where I was going next.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I am. When it comes to ranking things, I've gotten to the point where I almost don't like to rank the first of things. So the original trilogy was the first. That's what kicked it off. So to put it in a ranking against everything else, I can't think is kind of unfair. So I love the OT. It's what broke the mold. Clone Wars, really revolutionized Star Wars animation and brought it to where it is today. And then Mando
movie,
for live action. Yeah, well, of course. What's wrong with the movie? The movie's fine. What's wrong with 12-year-olds in space fighting outfits like that, right?
It's a great soundbite.
All right.
Right. Filoni knew what he was doing. Sure. But yeah, Clone Wars was the first. And so Mando's the same thing. Mando was the first of, without the success of Mando and setting it, Mando kind of sets the standard. No matter what you think about any live streaming show since, I think there's more unanimous around Mando, seasons 1 and 2, I think, as kind of the standard bearer for what live action should be. I think everybody kind of compares it against that because it is the original. So season 3, it got goofy at parts. I did not mind it. I'm when it comes to that, again, it was the first of something. So I'm fine with whatever they want to do it. I'll watch 3 hours of Mando and Grogu flying around in the Razor Crest or the N1 now, and I'm okay with that. Whatever they want to do. So, but yeah, so that's why, really, that's in terms of Mando, that opening shot of him in the doorway just sets the whole tone of, the feel of the show. And then every live action shows we've had since that is kind of either a little up or a little down from that standard, in my opinion. And I know we're going to get to Acolyte, but I like the fact that it's not just all cookie cutter Mando style. They've been brave enough to take chances in other types of almost styles of show, from Andor to Acolyte to Ahsoka and stuff like that.
Yeah, and to that point, with it being the standard bearer, you think to all the live action shows we've had so far, and every one of them almost has that iconic opening first 5 or 6 minutes, right? Like with Ahsoka, it was the boarding of the ship and Balin and Shin going crazy. Andor, it was the sort of seedy backwater thing with Cass, and same thing with Boba punching out of the Sarlacc. Like they all have that kind of like iconic punchy first opening scene, right? All good stuff. Favorite character? Scruffy, you lead us off.
Oh, you see, this changes so frequently. It's hard for me to narrow one down. I love R2. He's the true bro. He knew everything from beginning to end. He knew how to keep a secret too. But then the bad, now we have the Bad Batch, and I just, I love Wrecker. Wrecker's awesome. So I don't know if I can really narrow down one specific character.
John's a big Wrecker fan. John loves Wrecker.
John's a big Wrecker fan?
Oh, yeah. John loves Wrecker.
Right. I'm not the
Wrecker's
only one.
great.
Yes. Thank you.
I really thought I thought the rest of the Bad Batch was gonna eat it, and Disney was gonna save Wrecker. So
Yeah, we all had our theories about what was going to happen there. I kept thinking, no, you can't take anybody else away from me here, man. You've killed me taking tech away.
Oh yeah, it would have hurt losing guys, but I'm just like, Wrecker's the big brother, like the true big brother. So I'm like, Disney won't get rid of the big brother, so he's the safe guy.
Yeah, I figured if anybody's safe, it's going to be him. He's not wearing the red shirt, if you will.
Let's just be glad that Headland wasn't running that season of the Bad Batch, or they all would have died off for sure.
Oh yeah, everybody would have been dead, and I would still be pouring over a box of Kleenex, ma'am. But yeah, I think those are my my two favorite characters right now, and I really, like I say, it changes depending on my mood or what I'm watching or how I'm feeling that day, really.
Brown leader.
Well, we know his is Lizzo.
That's
that's right,
without question.
Lizzo all the way. Yeah, no, it really depends on the day. I mean, I guess I would have, right now, it would fluctuate between R5, I'm in the process of building an R5 army. I was so excited to see him come back in season 3 of Mando, actually, and play such a important part. But I'm also a fan of Chimera right now. I think I'd like to see more of his story. Get Disney, get us a book or something. I wouldn't mind seeing his backstory in terms of how he came into where he is in the Acolyte.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's definitely been an interesting addition because of the mysterious nature of him, right? We kind of touched on it in a couple episodes. You kind of get a little bit of it, but it's definitely, it's one of those things where if they're setting it up to be a season 2 type reveal and we'd never get a season 2, it's going to be super, super disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Favorite quote? If you don't have one, that's okay. But obviously, Star Wars is very quotable. Do you have one that stands out for you?
I just assumed kiss a Wookiee. First time I heard that line, I just laughed. I love that line for some reason every time I hear it. And Anakin's landing with the rescuing Palpatine, where Obi-Wan says, "Another happy landing."
Mm-hmm.
That's what I say every time I ride with Scruffy and we get somewhere.
Thank you for not letting me down there.
Another happy landing.
I knew that was coming.
For me,
they're terrified of my driving for some reason.
Yeah. I have friends who are like that too. I get that.
I see the GPS says when GPS says 10.5 hours from destination, I see that as a goal to beat, man.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right on.
Exactly.
Just not by a whole third of the time, though, Scruff. That's the problem.
Hey, high scores are a high score.
It's only illegal if you get caught.
Exactly.
Thank you. Exactly.
Right. For me, it would be hello there, because I use it in all my correspondence with, especially regards to guests and the podcast and everything. And then, of course, that's no moon.
It is indeed a space station.
Mm-hmm.
And Robot Chicken, go for Papa Palpatine.
Yes. You know what? You're right. I do. My 2 youngest, every time they call, that's how I answer. And my wife tried to copy me one time, and she botched it so bad it was really hilarious. I think that was even funnier because she doesn't know what I say because I rattle it off so fast. But
go for Papa Palpatine. Robot Chicken.
Go for Papa Palpatine.
Robot Chicken Star Wars it's so good. I can't not
awesome.
Hear certain, Stormtrooper. Like that.
Yes.
Hey, hold the elevator. I see you. What's your operating number? Like the guy who, I don't know who did Palpatine's voice, but he was fantastic.
I'm not sure, but it's awesome.
So good.
The hell's an aluminum falcon?
I saw that Instagram reel actually I think it was yesterday. It was that exact scene. Go for Papa Palpatine. What the hell's aluminum falcon? It's great stuff.
Just they're destroyed by a bunch of damn teenagers.
Man, I wish they would do, and maybe they have. I gotta see if they did one for like the sequel trilogy, or if they've done anything with any of the live actions. I don't even know if Robot Chicken's still on. But
I don't know. I have 3 DVDs. I can't remember what's on each one specifically right now.
They're so good.
I'll have to check it out. I need to drag those out, and I need to rewatch all those. It's been a long time.
I actually remember I downloaded the very first one onto my Xbox 360. That's how long ago it was.
Nice.
I think it was 2009. So that was good. All right. The last question for the get to know the guest. The most obviously we know, your listeners know, but you guys are avid collectors. We can see it there in the background. What is the most treasured piece that you have in your collection?
Scruff, I'll let you start.
Okay. I can't narrow it down to a specific piece. I have a lot of the toys we had when my brother and I were kids. So I have a lot of stuff from 77 to 83 that were ours when we were kids. I'm fortunate enough to still have all those stuff. So, there's an AT-AT, there's ATSD, there's the Death Star PlayStation. It's actually right in front of me right there. I still have all those toys. About half of my vintage figures are from when we were kids. So those always hold a really special place in my heart, obviously. And if I had to sell everything behind me, I could live with that, except for those specific pieces. That would be tough to let those go. So yeah, it's hard to really narrow that down. Plus, my daughter had a custom art piece created for me. It's me as Anakin and my wife as Padme in the white outfit. They're caricature drawings, and there's a Baby Yoda in there. There's an X-wing in the background and stuff, and that really, that was special made by my daughter for us, and so I love that piece too. So it'd be really hard to narrow it down, but there's things like that remind me of childhood stuff. Though the Topps card collection that I have all of those. The Burger Chef posters. Remember? Have you ever seen those? I wouldn't be able to get them on camera right now. And then the Burger King glasses. I have a full set of the Burger King glasses. It's those pieces that hold a special spot in my heart because they remind me of when I was a kid and I didn't have to adult, because we're all adults and adulting sucks.
It does. Anything that takes us back to simpler times are always special.
Oh yes. Spent my teenage years complaining I wanted to be adult, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life complaining I want to be a kid again.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. I guess for me, I'm going to go with it's kind of a two-part answer. The first one being the hokey one is really you guys and all the guests that we've had on the show, all the conversations we've had because of the podcast environment, and we're fast approaching 100 episodes, and I think back to all the people and all the conversations we've had, and I think to me that's really been the coolest thing. I know we're going to touch on ICC in a minute, the experiences we've had at ICCC because of this show, and just collecting all those stories and all those memories would be probably the first and foremost, because you can't, absent a head trauma, you can't lose those, and I can take those with me, whereas everything else really is material. But as for tangible items, for those that can see the video, they can see a lot of Funko. That's kind of my thing. But I did get a gift one time it's a Japanese Boba Fett bobblehead.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
It's an import. All the text is in Japanese. One of those things that I didn't know existed, but when I got it, it was like, that's cool. I mean, that's just how do you top that? And then things like the backdrop behind me, that was a custom made. All three of us got one. We all work at the same place. My department in particular, my employees are always asking us about the show. A few of them listen to the show, and for Christmas they got us all these matching blankets, and it's got our call signs at the bottom.
That's awesome.
Of each one. And so yeah, stuff like that, because it's like those unexpected items that you can't purchase, you wouldn't purchase on your own. So
yeah, those pieces that have that special sentimental feel to it are always some of the most valuable. John, when are you going to get one of those cool Japanese Boba Fett bobbleheads in your collection?
I've seen those and they are cool, but they're coming. I'm sure it'll land in my collection at some point. I've seen them before and they look awesome. I actually don't know if I've seen the Boba Fett one, but I've seen other characters in that display kind of. So, yeah, it's definitely on. Anything Boba lands in my collection eventually. So,
Yeah, just off screen to it would be his right is a glass case full of Boba memorabilia. So.
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, you got some pretty awesome stuff behind you there too.
Oh yeah, lots of figures.
So good. Yeah, that was an excellent sort of introduction. I know, again, we have common. We know each other, of course. We have some common listeners, but it's always nice to get a bit more background. Now, alluded to it just a few minutes ago about ICCC.
ICCC. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you guys recently had one of the the founder, right, on your show a couple episodes ago, I think, and you guys are going or planning to go. You got press credentials. Do you guys have things planned out? Are you guys planning? I think you were going to plan a meetup or something like that. But do you have anything else kind of in the works that you can talk about or want to talk about?
Yeah, I definitely want to start. We're trying to put a get together because Sean, as you know, anyone that comes on the show becomes honorary members of Brown Squadron. You get a flight designation and a call sign. So, John, hint, hint, you got to come on. We definitely want to do a Brown Squadron meetup at some point in the show. Do a group photo. I'm going to spend. I know I'll spend a lot of time in the podcast room itself, the podcast studio, the ECPC TV stage. They did kind of hint to us last year that this year the returning pods. Usually, how it works is if you hang out long enough, you get to sit in on other interviews. So last year we got to interview Spencer Wilding. Which was really cool, and we got to the boys got to interview Jim Swearingen. Yep, yes. Who is the guy that, for those that don't know, Jim is the man responsible in the late 70s for getting Kenner to pick up the original Star Wars toy line. So the script fell from desk to desk to desk. He took it home, read it, came back, convinced him we've got to do this line, and the rest is history. And one of the cool things. I think the first year we went, because that's when we met John during room sales. Our John was doing room sales, and Jedi John came through, and that's how we kind of recognized the logo, and that's how we kind of started making connections. And we, Jim designed a lot of the toys as well, and they have a Kenner room at that venue where all the former Kenner executives and people that participated in those early days of the toys. The making of the toys, they all kind of put them all in one location, and they're super easy to approach. So we're definitely going to be hitting up that room again, talking to some of them. But yeah, I'm going to be hanging out in the podcast room because they kind of indicated we might get a celebrity assigned to us ahead of time, so we can do some better research. Those were last minute interviews we got to jump in on last year, and considering some of the guest lists that they've announced so far this year, I definitely want to be in the running for that, for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. There's some cool stuff coming up.
I'm going to do my darndest to get in on the Brendan Wayne interview, because the first guest they announced, Chris Bartlett. We've had him on the show, and we got to talk to him. Super nice guy, and that's another thing we're definitely going to do, because he told us we had found out he was going to be at the show, and he told us that come on over. We've all got Black Series zeros that he's gonna sign for us.
Cool.
So we're definitely gonna hit him up for that, and group photo as well. And yeah, for me, it's again collecting the stories, hearing the things. I'll get as much B-roll as I can. I want to do more man on the street type stuff again this year. Do even more of it. Some more of the vendors, just go from vendor to vendor and talk to them and post all that. I enjoy doing stuff like that. And yeah, really just Scruff, what about you?
I am 3 figures away from completing the entire vintage line, so I need to go find those 3 figures. Let's see.
Which three do you need? Maybe John
I need Yak Face. I need Yak Face, EV99.
No. He's looking for expensive figures.
Yes.
That's why they're the last 3.
Yeah, that Yak Face will run you up.
Yeah, I had a chance to buy one for $400 in beautiful shape. I should have jumped on that, but I did not. And I'm feeling I'm going to regret it in October. But we'll see. And then there's some miscellaneous weapons that I need from figures that we had when we were kids. So I need to go out and do some shopping. I need to try and eliminate some of the stuff off my list. I got some autographs I want to get. I'm excited about the lineup he's got. Gold Leader, Dennis Lawson.
Yeah, that's cool.
Paul Blake. I need Paul Blake's autograph bad. I'm excited about that. And mostly just walk around and sell some stuff. Room sales will be happening again this year. I got some stuff that I really don't want to sell, but what you see behind me is just a fraction of the total collection. The wall behind me is just jam-packed from floor to ceiling, full length of just bins of stuff that I have no room to display. And everything in front of me is full too, so I have no more room. I got to sell some of the stuff. So room sales are going to happen, and come join me, and I'll probably be the only grown man in the room crying. It's tough to let it go. It's tough to sell it.
It is. I've been there. I've been in rooms. It's tough to sit in those rooms and watch like things that you really love, but yeah, you don't have space. So it's tough. I like being on the other end when I'm buying something I really want. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I just got to keep reminding myself of that. I'm taking all this quantity of stuff that I sell to buy small quantities of stuff that I need to finish the collection.
Mm-hmm.
Like I need a die-cast TIE fighter or a die-cast TIE bomber to complete the die-cast line. But we all know what that's going to run me.
is that the Black Series
That's an
diecast ones,
expensive
or which ones?
No, the vintage.
Oh, the vintage.
die-cast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to run. That's going to run some coin there too. 12-inch line. I would love to complete that 12-inch line. So yeah, I've got quite a shopping list here, and let's hope that Mrs. Scruffy is not listening right now.
Well, you just sell enough to offset the cost, and it becomes a wash. That's the whole thing, right? We sell our stuff to basically fund the stuff.
This is true, but she's also heard me say repeatedly, someday it's going to be worth half of what I paid for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my wife always says that too. She's like, "So it's worth how much?" I say, "Yeah, it's worth this." Okay, but what if it goes down in price, or what if that's only if you sell it? I'm like, well, yeah, but it's worth that. So that's got to count for something.
Yeah. I've used that line too. And she's like, "Well, that implies you're going to sell it." Oh.
Okay.
Well, John's going through, and you're cleaning out your room there too.
Oh yeah, I have to. It's yeah. Talk about. I mean, I just did this. We had a Toy Man show 2 weekends ago, and I unloaded 3 boxes of stuff, thankfully. So anything to downsize because I'm just out of space.
Yeah, we were talking actually just yesterday about, because there's some rooms I guess that are still available at the hotel there that the convention's at. And we're like, oh, maybe we should go. So we're trying to coordinate that with John and our other buddy Keith. We talk about it on the show all the time. Like maybe we do a boys trip, boys weekend for ICCC.
Well, yeah. Now that it's not Memorial Day weekend, it's really helpful for me because it frees me up a little bit. So
right on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Memorial Day weekend's a pretty tough weekend to have that.
Yeah. Yeah, we got lucky with it last year because normally we don't get that weekend off either. And I know like Scruff and DB want to head down a day early, so anybody that's going to be down there a day before the show, they're going to hit the arcade.
Oh, yes. The big plan is to get down there Tuesday night, check in, get everything unloaded, get up Wednesday morning, make sure I'm set for room sales, and then we're heading down to a place called the Game Terminal. Nothing but vintage video games. Anybody wants to join us, come on down and hang with us. We're reliving 1987 all over again. We're going to eat pizza, drink Mountain Dew. Well, of course, it'll be Mountain Dew Zero because we're all old and
can't handle the sugar.
Health issues. Can't handle the sugar. We don't need a repeat of the first year. Yeah. So, we're going to be down there eating pizza, drinking Mountain Dew, and playing video games. And that's my plan for 6 hours that day.
It's a good plan.
Just vintage video games.
That sounds awesome. John, we might have to change our plans and go down earlier now.
Yeah, you guys need to be down there Wednesday, man. Come hang out with us.
I'm not against it.
You can get off work.
I'll hook you guys up with some contact info. Give me a shout when you get down there. We'll be there, or at least I'll be there.
Sounds good. That sounds like a blast. That sounds fun. So yeah, we gotta get that ironed out whether or not we're gonna go or not. I suppose we're getting, because I think the early bird sale or like sale price ends August, or at the end of July, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I think so, yeah.
So we gotta get that sorted. So okay, well, with that, we'll kind of pivot then into the main topic tonight, which is the Acolyte, episode 8. quick recap because there was a lot to kind of go over now that we're about a week removed from the episode. You know, absence makes the heart grow fonder, perhaps. So we shall see. But I actually had to go back through and kind of scroll through and get a rehash because I had things out of order from when I watched it last week. But yeah, so things start with the cave scene with Chimera Osha. She gets the premonition of May killing Soul. You know, Chimera goes into that sort of dark, black-eyed thing, similar to what Torben did when he was possessed by Anastasia, which I think was really interesting. And I have a feeling there's more to it, but naturally, we got nothing on it. Perhaps that's a season two topic, but I don't think that was unintentional. And then once again, we pivot back to Soul and May, which is where we left them before we got the flashback episode in episode 7. She finds a way to scurry out of her cuffs, zaps him with the pip, and makes her escape wearing a helmet that is entirely too small for her head. Did anybody else think that looked really awkward? Like, it was one of those like Black Series helmets, but it wasn't sized appropriately, and so it's like sitting there.
It looks like me when I put on the Carson Teva helmet that I have. And I just
it's like that scene from Little Giants where he's like, I can't get it on, and coach, the helmet won't fit, and he goes, whoa, thanks, coach. Like, that's where it was. I was like, can someone just push it on her head? Anyways, she she bails in the transport shuttle, and Soul pursues, and of course, just before he catches her, Basil out of nowhere decides to just absolutely sabotage the ship, which, sure, that makes sense. And they crash land on Brendock. We then pivot to Vernestra meeting up with the senator who hates the Jedi, Senator Rainscourt. Did write that down, but I typed that wrong. Who we learn in an earlier episode wants to audit the Jedi Order, and of course he has some phenomenal foreshadowing in saying, someday someone will eventually snap, and no one will be, and who will be strong enough to stop him. Didn't even say them, said him, right? So assumed that, it's going to be a dude. Mm-hmm. Then we cut back to the island and we get Plagueis cameo, which would stop there. When you first saw, when you saw that scene, what were your guys' reactions to Plagueis being seen in canon now, or live action?
I jumped up and said, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. It was a nice little Easter egg, or not Easter egg, but just cameo. Yeah.
So and we'll talk about it a little bit later, as far as what the purpose could be and everything like that. And so we get back to Brendock and we get Chimera versus Soul, part 2, and May versus Osha. I mean, the fight choreography, I think this entire season has been awesome. The way that they kept cutting back and forth between the two. There's that one transition where they go from crossing legs to crossing sabers. Really cool sort of cinematography in that respect. Very cool, force repulsion move from Soul. Like he finally kind of had his mojo back with Chimera. Like there was no more clouded sort of fear from when they met him on Kofar. And then we get the standoff with Soul. Once again, Soul has beaten Chimera. He's got him at the end of his saber, and naturally May comes and stops him. Steals a saber, knocks the saber out of his hand, takes the saber, what have you, and then we get the back and forth. Did this happen? And Soul finally admits that he did kill Anastasia, and at the same time, it's within earshot of Osha, who has just picked up his saber, and we get probably the coolest scene in the whole series. Which was definitely not expected, which was the bleeding of Soul's crystal. And then she proceeds to Osha proceeds to force choke Soul to death. A lot of emotion in that scene. We can talk about it here in a little bit, but the way that Lee Jung-jae played Soul, the way he acted that scene, I thought it was excellent. And then we get the band of Jedi led by Vernestra, who, I mean, I'm not really super well versed in her character throughout the books because I didn't read the young adult novels and everything like that. But I really feel like the pivot in her character was probably unexpected. But regardless, they show up. She senses Chimere, so we get that instant. Oh, yep, everything that we expected is true. There is that connection there. But they end up escaping out of the Cloud City shaft. Like, that took me straight back to Cloud City when I saw that. I was like, great. So she got sucked out just like Luke did. And I mean, even the same light system too, as you track down it, which is kind of wild. And we end up back at the Boonta, the Boonta tree, and we get some Star Wars Men in Black action, and Chimere, force wipes May's mind, and he and Osha leave. Osha is the Acolyte, which I think a lot of people kind of predicted would happen. May's picked up by the Jedi, taken back to the temple, and I didn't understand that whole final scene as far as like her memory reverting back to when she was 8 years old, and if there's significance there, if there's a means to utilize that knowledge to find Chimere. I feel like it's kind of alluded to, but not super well explained. And then we finish with Vernestra in front of the Senate sort of tribunal about the events of what took place. She throws Soul under the bus, says it was his, he was overtaken with emotion, etc., etc. Kind of playing to what Rainscourt said about losing his emotions or being unable to control them. And then the final cameo, which I thought there was actually going to be a post-credit scene, but it was obviously at the end of the episode. We get Yoda, and Vernestra has to talk to him about something. And scene. So, your first thoughts, your thoughts actually, on the episode as a whole. Scruffy, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, there's still a lot of unanswered questions for me that I think, and for the most part, I like unanswered questions. I think it adds to the story. But this time, there are a few things that I think really do need an answer. But for the most part, I loved it. I thought it was great. I can nitpick anything to death, really, if I really wanted to. But the reality is, I loved it, and I'm glad to see something that wasn't Skywalker saga type stuff. It wasn't quite Knights of the Old Republic that I really wanted, but it's still something older, something different. Mm-hmm. So I loved it.
Yeah.
And the fight scenes were awesome. And then Soul, the actor who played Soul, for someone who just learned English just before starring in this role is incredible.
Yeah, top notch.
He's an awesome actor. Loved it.
Yeah, I'm okay with the unanswered questions. I like it. I think they ended at a spot where if we don't get a season 2, I'm okay. I'm a big fan of headcanon and guessing and theorizing, and that's half of my enjoyment of Star Wars is when a good juicy story will get you to ask all those questions, and even though I'm probably right 2% of the time, I don't care. It's right. I mean, you
hold on to that 2% though. You do not let that 2% go, and you remind people
own that 2%.
Oh yeah. IG-11 was going to become the constable, so That's knew right. it. Absolutely knew it. So,
but Plagueis, I need some kind of a reasoning why he made the appearance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's just a connective tissue so that, if they want to go further down that story, I think really it was just a fan. I think it was a bone to throw to the fans to try to get in the book lovers. I got to say one thing about Headland. She knows her lore. She definitely threw a lot of lore in the Cortosis, the bleeding of the crystal, which I thought was, I loved it. I love seeing that in live action. And for all the nitpickers that are like, well, Anakin didn't do it when he slayed the kids. Well, the bleeding crystal wasn't a thing back then. So, if Lucasfilm wants to go, if they want to let George go back and do a special edition of the Revenge of the Sith and have him put in there where the crystal bleeds when he goes to kill the younglings, I'd be down with that. But if they don't want to do it, I'm okay with that too. Sometimes we lose context. We lose the context of when the films were made and what was the atmosphere or the lore then versus what is the expanded lore now. And so I think we unfairly evaluate things to that perspective. But I was okay. I thought, again, I could nitpick some things. I thought there was a subtle shift in Chimere that I didn't quite understand in this episode, but the overall, I thought the ending was a little weak in the, well, okay, I'll go with you as long as you leave my sister out of this kind of thing. I thought that it might have just been the way they read the lines. I don't know, but again, just a minor nitpick. But overall, I'm glad that we have this as an addition to the Star Wars universe, without a doubt. I'm glad that we got the expanded lore of the different Force users, the thread, the how they see it versus how the Night Sisters see it versus how the Jedi see it. I like the fact that we're going back in the past where you do see some of that blind altruism that the Jedi had, and what that did to other Force users, and almost to the level of a religious persecution style of story. I'm okay with that. I think that's how could you not expect some of that, and somebody's villain is somebody else's rebel fighter, right? And
from a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view. And so I think interrupting Yoda on the pot while he was going was a little rude of Vernestra, but
Mark, next time you will.
Yeah. No, I've been seeing that meme a lot. But I like the fact that that's all they used Yoda for. I was fine with that. Scruffy and I were talking about it, or maybe it was DB and I were talking about it. I think if they brought Yoda into the story more, it would have started to overshadow the rest of the characters. It would have become the Yoda show. It wasn't the Yoda show. So I think how they used him was fine. Same thing with Plagueis. It wasn't the Plagueis show. So kind of going back full circle to your original question, I think the way they used Plagueis was fine. I just fine. And if they do a season 2 and they want to explore more of that, great. Because I think we saw indications in this episode where Chimere definitely is not the master, and it was even before. It was when she had the helmet on and he started to get sucked into her, when his eyes started turning black. It showed that he didn't quite have all the power he needed, and he had to struggle and fight to get that, to break out of her trance, her Force abilities, and get that helmet off her head. So it definitely right there shows he was not the master, and he himself was still learning. So then to drop Plagueis after that to show you who the master really is, I was fine with it.
I'd just like to hear a little more Plagueis, though, for sure.
Well, the use of him just as like a creepy in the shadows kind of thing, which he's Sith, he's supposed to be operating from the shadows. I get that, but I feel like there could have been a more a more sort of punchy use for him that they got more bang for the 10-second buck sort of thing. That's all. John, what did you think?
Yeah, I could echo what the guys already said. In most cases, just to hit on a couple of their points, like Anakin bleeding his sabers on Mustafar, that totally is fine with me still. I don't care that he didn't bleed it right when he murdered the children. I would have to argue that wasn't his peak level of hate versus Osha's peak level of hate was truly killing the person that killed her mother. So I think the lore still stands on what it can, even though it was different 20 years ago in some regard. My prediction was wrong. I thought we were going to get Plagueis in the last scene of the entire thing. So instead we got Yoda and Plagueis much earlier in the show, obviously. I thought they used them both fine. I didn't mind seeing Yoda. I think you're right. I think he would have overshadowed if we got too much of him. And same with Plagueis. I think Hedlund probably said it best, hearing her talk about why they did what they did with Plagueis. It was to make sure that he didn't overshadow what else was in the story, because he was not the focal point this season. I hope we get season 2. I'd be extremely disappointed if we don't. I have low expectations based on current feedback on the interwebs, which is sad, but there are a lot of questions unanswered, some even from this season that I don't mind talking about and theorizing, but I want the answers eventually. But overall, to echo some of the other guys, but the fight scene's great. Soul, fantastic. The pause with Chimere bothers me because Soul easily had him beat, and then
again,
it just didn't sit well with me, the way that he just let him out of it. It wasn't even the first time, so like it's frustrating because you've seen Soul be so dominant in a fight multiple times now, and then he just doesn't finish, and they're like, oh well, he was unarmed. Dude, he was armed the whole time, like, and he still got the Force. I did appreciate the scene with Chimere and Osha earlier, where she put like the helmet was on. He struggled, it was interesting to see that the dynamic of he's not as powerful as maybe she is with the Force, which is going to be interesting going forward. And introducing Plagueis is important because rule of 2 and everything like that. You kind of see that they're both probably doomed with Palpatine emerging at some point. Still a couple hundred years away, but you never know how long they're going to be around.
You're not that far. You're not that far away. You're only about 60, 70 years away.
Yeah, what they say it last. Yeah,
well,
it's within
now
100.
Now that the ages have all changed, because now Plagueis is presumably older than the Legends age puts him at in this time frame, which of course people have problems with as well. So.
Well, he just got
Plague. Just by the description of Plagueis, he could be hundreds or thousands of years old if he found a way to cheat death, and he's been moving from body to body to body. He could very easily be, Anyway,
and I'm just wondering on that hate. Is it like 2% of the people making 98% of the noise? I personally thought the whole series was great. And a lot of the people I talk to think it's awesome.
It would seem that there's certainly bots. I mean, there's no way that there's 10,000 people who every week have that much free time that they're going to go on like IMDb or somewhere and just put these, because there's 9,800 ratings on this episode right now, which total between just kind of quickly, there's 25,000 ratings for the first episode, 22,000 for episode 2, 20, 70, 80, 100, 130. There's probably darn near 150,000 ratings between 8 episodes of the Acolyte. That, like, the Mandalorian has like 15% of that, like 20% of that. It's absurd, the amount of just automated hate.
Oh yeah, and it's all ones. Like a good chunk of them just straight ones. Like,
so it's really frustrating because while I have my qualms with it, and as far as episode 8 goes, like the thing that I had trouble with is that everything was super predictable. Like the way that Chimere the way that Soul defeats Chimere, and then I was even sitting with my wife and I go, and here comes May, and as I said that, she came through and knocked the saber out of his hand. I'm like, of course, naturally. And then 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now, I put something on Twitter. I'm like, I swear if Vernestra throws Soul into the bus, we're gonna riot. And I'm like, well, I guess I got to get my torch and pitchfork. So like stuff like that. It's like, we could see certain aspects coming, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but when it's that, telegraphed, right, it takes away some of the. Now, I will say that this was probably the most tense episode of the 8, because I didn't know how, none of us knew how it was going to end, of course. The fight scene, again, we've already said it. It was fantastic. Lee Jung-jae as Soul throughout the whole series was the for me the bright spot. He was the star, and we'll get into it when we talk about the series as a whole. But the bleeding of the crystal, I did find it interesting with that, how I don't understand why it was bleeding, but then when it turned on, it was still blue. It was almost like it was fighting, and then the last little bit turned it red. It was that transition because when I don't know if you guys played Jedi Survivor, but there's a scene or there's a part of the game where the sort of villain, or what turns out to be the antagonist, bleeds his crystal in real time in front of Cal. Because he comes out of stasis. He's a High Republic Jedi, actually. He comes out of stasis, and he learns that the Jedi Order have been toppled by the Empire, and he loses his mind. And he in the moment, he doesn't touch the crystal or anything, but he bleeds it in that moment, and it just turns red. It goes from blue to red, which is actually really cool. And so that came out a few years ago now. But seeing it live action was awesome. I didn't like the way that they turned Vernestra into, for all intents and purposes, just a cover-up artist. Like, her job, I guess, is to protect the Order, right? Or at least that's how she's portrayed. But the way that they paint the Order in this show was very interesting. And again, I guess we'll get to that point here in the series wrap. But overall, it was a solid finale. But there were certain things like the Plagueis, again, I kind of feel like he was wasted. And throwing Yoda in at the end almost complicates things, because what is she about to tell him? Does he, is it, hey, Soul went off the deep end and he killed a bunch of people and we got to be careful, sort of thing. We can't bring too many people in who might know what happened. So overall, decent way to end. If we don't get a season 2, that's okay. I feel like it's kind of on par with Book of Boba Fett, where there's some really strong parts of it, but that the way that the story was delivered kind of felt clunky at times. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not what I was hoping to get from this series. So, especially as someone who's read the books and the comics and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, High Republic, and you're like, this is nothing to do with the High Republic. It's anyways, so what would you guys grade, if you had to give a grade to it, what would you grade? We like to do this every episode with these things. What would you grade out of 10 episode 8?
I would go 7. I mean, I really enjoyed it. Yes, I can nitpick A New Hope if I really wanted to. So nothing's ever perfect, but I think it was really good. It was solid. There's just a few things in there that bugged me a little bit, I guess you could say, but certainly not the hate I've been hearing on it.
Mm-hmm.
And for Brown Leader, he enjoyed it because it had great character development.
Actually, it didn't, but that's the only story. I would probably give it probably like a 6.7, close to a 7. I thought it was pretty solid in terms of a finale for a show. I mean, we've seen worse. So, again, most of my nitpicks are just more minor production things. And once again, the second fight between Saul and Chimera, and I'm like, chop the effing guy's head off. What are you doing? I was screaming that in the first fight. I'm like literally screaming that at the TV. I was like, chop his head off, chop his head off, chop his head off. Finish it now.
Do it.
Do it. Yeah. But yeah, so probably 6.7.
That was a solid 4 from the dogs, right, John?
Yeah,
solid
the dogs are going a little crazy. Sorry. We're still adjusting to multiple dogs. This is probably the first time ever I had a dog on the podcast at some point today. So
he's a good boy.
130-pound Rottweiler just worked his way into the room somehow. So anyway, I'm in the 6.5 boat. There's still a lot of questions unanswered for me, and I mean we'll talk about it in the season wrap too. But I could never connect with anything around the twins, which is, it seems like it should be the focal point of the show, and I don't think I enjoyed one scene they were both in. per se, and it just is. There's a lot of cool things with the show, and I enjoy the show overall. But the twins should have been probably the focal point, and I was probably the least connected to them throughout the entire show. So, and yeah, it didn't make sense to me the last time they were together. Like, oh yeah, let's wipe her and I'll be your apprentice. Like, okay, just my take.
Yeah, and I'm in that 6.5-7 range too, just because it's weird. And I'm trying to think back to when we reviewed like night and day, or what is it? Sorry, day and night went the other way. Because one half was not so great, and then the back half was like, whoa, that's really cool, just because you get the fight scenes. And I don't feel like the fight scenes are enough to like carry, because I feel like there's more of a narrative there that they're trying to get across. To your point, Brown Leader, we've had worse final episodes. It's just one of those things where if the things that they're setting up for a potential season 2, if they don't give it, if we don't get it, then it almost feels like incomplete. And while they kind of tied up things in a necessary way, I think it's anything but fulfilling in kind of the completion of the story arc. So I'm probably in that 6.5 ish range. So we're all kind of in the same realm. IMDb gives it a 5.2, which is the third highest rating of the year. So Night was the highest rated of the year at 6.5 out of 10, with episode 1 second place at 5.3. So it's and I guess we can pivot into the series as a whole now and kind of try to look through it, look at it as a whole, with the story, the characters, the setup, or at least kind of the way that they're trying to set the building blocks to where we get to in the prequel and subsequent Skywalker saga. What are some of your highlights from the season, and what were some of the things that you're like, yeah, that didn't really hit for me? Let's do a pro and con list. Let's not, let's try and balance the negativity with the positivity. So, Brown Leader, why don't you lead us off?
Okay. So, pros, we got new characters. We got a new time period we haven't seen in live action. I was happy about that. At times, it felt like a lived-in universe, which is one of the things that is kind of important to a Star Wars universe. But then other times, it felt like they hadn't had enough time to finish the production on, maybe the costumes were a little too clean, or just production value was a little inconsistent. So that I kind of counter that, that is a con in terms of, Leslie said she didn't want to use the volume. She wanted to use all sound stages, which is fine, but it kind of brings your scope of focus in, like on Kofar, it made it feel, you definitely could tell it was a soundstage. I almost think they would have benefited from a larger version of the volume to at least project more depth. I think the volume is a very useful tool. They've proved it over and over with Mando. When you have the right people using the tools effectively, you can make it look really good. And then there's the opposite, like when they did the day episode, and they're doing the Lord of the Rings walking and walking and talking and walking and talking in the outdoor, in an outdoor environment, which looked great. And then you contrast it with the Kofar soundstage. It was a little jarring, and that's most of my nitpicking would be just the production. But I also go back to, that's really kind of the, you go back to the showrunner with it. Leslie's background is more theater and small screen and TV. That's her background. That's her experience. Whereas you get Favreau with Mandalorian, who's bringing the whole, and Gilroy, and their experience is much more cinematic. And so, and Star Wars has been established as a cinematic universe, and so I can see why some people would be a little upset. It didn't bother me as much. It's just a nitpick in my category. Again, we're getting different styles of Star Wars. We're getting different ways that stories are being told. Andor was told completely differently than what Mando was, and even Ahsoka was a little different. And then you've got your animation, and I'm happy that they're experimenting with different styles to see what works and what doesn't work. You can't expand, you can't grow without it. And when you grow, you're going to stumble, you're going to fall, you're going to have a few things here and there. I think the acting was for the most part pretty good. It was really weird though. There seemed to be kind of a shift later on in the season. I was invested in the twins in the beginning. I thought like the when the Jedi prison transport crashes and Osha first sees May as the children, I thought that was a really good scene. I thought the flashback episodes were really good. I liked them both. But in the last couple episodes, I was kind of like Jedi John. I kind of started losing interest in the twins a little bit. It just wasn't, I don't know, something just wasn't impacting me as much. Maybe if they had progressed the story a little more, it kind of seemed like it kind of stalled a little bit. But I was a little bummed we didn't get more. We only got part of Star Wars is spaceships, and we didn't really get a lot with that. We only got a couple. One of the defining things about Star Wars is its universe of spaceships. I would have liked to see more. I like to see even the little doses of Attack of the Clones that we got with the politics. I liked it. I did like it. It was showing the pressure on the Jedi. They're laying those threads for why Yoda was not as an effective leader in the prequels, starting to lay that groundwork. Because you can see the Jedi Order starting to get bogged down with bureaucracy, and anything that gets bogged down with bureaucracy is going to be a mess, without a doubt. When they start right from the get-go, when Saul talks about their political enemies to Vernestra in their first scene together, you could already get that sense of the bureaucracy. I liked it. I liked the kind of the things that the machinations behind the scenes that give more depth to that storyline. I did enjoy that. I like the fact that they were brave enough to kill off as many characters as they did. I thought in Night. And one question I'll pose and we can discuss later is, which battle did you like better? Did you like the Night battle or did you like the finale battle? But I thought the different style of fighting was good. I thought using Trinity in the beginning to establish the style of fighting was a genius move on their part, because everybody knows her as Trinity, knows the Matrix style fighting. You get that with her, because whether you like it or not, one of the ways I judge acting is, do I see the actor playing a character or do I just see the character and I don't see the actor at all? And with her Carrie-Anne Moss, it's going to be hard not to see Trinity, right? And so by having her, introducing that style of fighting with that actress in particular in the beginning, I thought was great, because it then brings it into it's a little more subconsciously, it's a little more acceptable to the viewers, because they've already seen Trinity do this style of fighting in the past, or Carrie-Anne Moss as Trinity. And so it kind of gets that acceptance level, I think, moving along a little faster than it would have if it had been some other actor or actress, I think. So I thought that was really good. And I like that they killed her off in the beginning. Again, it established the stakes. Why? Because we know Carrie-Anne Moss. We know her as an established actress. And to kill somebody off like that, you're going to have more emotional invested in the first few minutes with her than you would any other actor in the show. So to kill her off in the beginning, I thought was great, because it establishes that this is a serious threat. They just killed Trinity.
Yeah, that was definitely unexpected with that opening. Again, a very Mando-y, first 8 minutes, right? And you're like, oh, so that's what we're putting up with, or that's what we're going to see in the show. Yeah, I agree. It did set it set a different tone than a lot of the Disney Plus shows to this point.
Mm-hmm. I like the little bits of lore that she sprinkled in, the little bits of things like the cortosis and the bleeding of the crystal. The basil species was from a 1978 Han Solo novel. That is not canon, obviously. And that's where they got the concept of basil from.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So kudos. I mean, there was little things like that, and I think I'll end with, I think basil is tenebrous, but that's a whole nother theory.
I was going to ask, is he force sensitive? Because how in the heck did he know to rip the wires out right before Sol was about to take her down? I have no idea. It's incredible.
And why was Sol going to take her down? That made no... anyway.
Yeah, especially with the monologue he had at the end. He's like, we have to keep them both alive because we need them to prove that there's a virgin on Brendock, and nobody will believe us if she's dead. But then I just tried to blow her out of the sky. But thank you to the space beaver for saving you. So
the one other positive I'll throw out is that we got a new droid. Always like it when they introduce new droids, and not just Pip. But in the very first episode, and I posted it on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, they introduced a new style of gonk, and that looked like a central air unit, and it's on the Nemodian's ship, and it's when they come out of their quarters. I have it on Twitter, and what did I call him? Scruff? I can't remember now.
I don't know. I'm still stuck on Space Beaver.
Space Beaver. But they did little things like that, little details like that. I appreciated to try to capture that Star Wars feel. And I liked the dynamic between Yord and Jecki when they were alive. And I thought their characters fit perfectly into what you would expect to see out of characters in that era of Jedi Academy and Temple and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So.
See, I've never seen The Matrix, so the whole Trinity thing didn't really faze me. I was surprised to see the main character. I was waiting for that.
What?
I tried to watch it. I don't know why. I was never able to get into it. I was never able to get very far into it before I was just like, bordering on going comatose. So anyway.
I mean, if you want to pick something to poke a lot of holes in, I mean, The Matrix is where we go for holes. But yeah, so I get it.
I mean, I'm going to have to give it another try because a lot of people I've talked to all look at me with the same expression on their face, like, "What? How will you call yourself a nerd and not have seen The Matrix?" So I'm gonna have to suck it up and watch it. But so I love the fact that the body count felt like Rogue One, where the good guys didn't make it sometimes, and that's just a hardcore reality of life. Sometimes the good guys don't make it. Sometimes they die, and I appreciated the fact that they were willing to have a big body count for this series or the season. I really enjoyed those fight scenes. I thought they were epically great, and I really. I didn't really have a connection to any of the characters until the episode The Night, I think it was, where Chimere. That's when I finally got really appreciative of a character with Chimere's one-lines and his some of the lines that he had in that episode where well, how did he say it around later? Was that its name?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was savage.
Some of those lines were savage,
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And I'm like,
Yep.
I that was when I finally got some kind of a feeling about a character. Otherwise, I never warmed up to any of the characters really until that point. Chimere became my new favorite bad guy. Out of I think most of Star Wars at this point.
I mean, the way that they brought him in at the end of Day was like probably the best introduction of a bad guy or villain, short of Maul being behind the door in Phantom Menace, right? Like, although Vader walking through in A New Hope probably was impactful as well, but like the sense of dread and terror, kind of like in that moment before he yeets Osha into a tree. Yeah, that was pretty. That was
yeah,
awesome.
And even the helmet. I hear a lot of bickering or complaining about that helmet. You know, I thought the helmet was even kind of cool.
Mhm.
The teeth kind of had a really cheesy 70s or 80s horror movie feel to it. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, even the helmet I enjoyed. But I did love the fight scenes in this series. I thought they were epically well done. And once again, I cannot remember the actor who played Saul.
Lee Jung-jae.
Lee Jung-jae, yes. I loved I loved how he brought that character to life, for sure. And I'm still confused about the space beaver. I don't know what to make of that character. I understand the purpose of the character, the bloodhound thing, but there was no. It was just he was just all over the place, and I just am still kind of puzzled by that. But I did go back and start rewatching some of the earlier episodes after talking to Brown Leader one day, and thank you very much. It didn't bug me until now. You're right. The soundstage, everything felt like it shrunk after you and I spoke. Everything felt like it shrunk, where the volume was able to create that expansive universe, and suddenly now everything's on a stage, and the scale felt small.
Yeah,
I guess,
or get bigger sound stages. You know, the sound stage that they did the Theed Palace on Naboo, you know, was ginormous,
massive. It was massive.
I was going to say real quick with Chimera floating down, how he was introduced as the bad guy at the end of Day. That is a callback to Gennady Tarkovsky's Clone Wars. And Dooku floats down almost identical to Asajj in one of the scenes, and I thought that was pretty cool. That's
where he was recruiting Asajj at the fight thing there. But so yeah, I mean, for the most part, I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm excited to see. I wish I would have read more High Republic before going into it, but then again, maybe I'm glad I didn't. You know?
Yeah. So I will tell you right now that you don't need to know any High Republic stuff to watch this show. There was one callback where they talk about the hyperspace disaster in episode 7, but that has no real bearing on the story that they're trying to tell. They completely forget about the Drengir. They completely forget about the Nihil that the Jedi spent years fighting. 100 years prior to this. So it does nothing to change the story, other than you might know Vernestra ahead of time. But again, her character is so vastly different from who she is in the books and stuff that frankly, you're better off not knowing anything about the High Republic on watching the show than coming into it with a lot of background, other than you understand that the Senate and the Republic have been questioning the need for the Jedi for well over 100 years at this point. So,
that I kind of already knew going into it, that there was the beginning of that questioning part there.
But the Nihil are what drive that, because the Nihil threat is happening, and they're like, well, if the Jedi can't handle it, we need to be able to stand up for ourselves. And so they want to start this defense task force and everything like that. And so that's really the only kind of tie-in that you would get from reading the books or the comics.
Okay. And I did appreciate, the one other thing I did appreciate was it showed that, we always see the Jedi as the good guys, the saviors of the galaxy, if you will, but it showed a darker side of the Jedi, in that, well, how did you get those kids? How did you recruit these force sensitive children? And it really kind of brought to light that, even the heroes, or how'd you say it? Somebody's hero is somebody else's villain.
Or rebel, right? Yeah.
Or yeah, there you go. So yeah, I found that part to be very interesting, and I like that about it.
Jedi John?
I hated the whole show. It was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. No, I'm just kidding.
You're only saying that because you love Boba Fett and you can't rank it below.
I know. Is that the Gonk droid?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, Hasbro, if you're listening, I need
those
cool. figures, please.
Yep.
Yeah.
Make him.
That is cool.
I have a Gonk droid army going on. I think I've got 30 or 40 of them right now, vintage Gonk.
Oh, nice.
And I've got maybe 5 or 6 newer style Gonks in there. So I'm working on a droid Gonk army.
Nice.
Along with a Hammerhead army.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I overall enjoyed the show. It was weird. We had that transition period. Sean and I like talking about how we didn't think anybody had read the lore early on in the season. We're like, are they paying attention? Did they do any research before they wrote this show? And then later on in the show, we gave kudos. Like, okay, they know their stuff. Thank goodness, because it was getting dicey. Overall, the choreography was good. Lightsaber battles were well done. It's probably some of the better lightsaber battles we've had recently. I liked that they were okay killing whoever it was. I hated that was the first death on screen, because I was probably most interested in watching her character, which, to your point, you're the most connected to her based on the actress alone. So kudos to them, I guess. I hated the decision, but it is what it is. I also hated Ned Stark getting his head chopped off in the finale of Game of Thrones season 1. Anyway, but yeah, so you like things, you don't like things, but that's okay. Like I think that's the best part about the show, is like it's okay to not like certain decisions, and that's, and like I said, that's okay. I enjoyed the politics behind it. The Senate putting pressure on the Jedi Council to let somebody oversee a little bit, based on the fact that they seem to be all powerful at that point. Just listening to some of the younger Jedi in the Order, like you've got Yord and Jeki, very different styles of communication and attitude towards what their purpose is, and they weren't necessarily soldiers, but they're very different attitude towards an enemy. Yeah, that was I enjoyed that aspect of the show. Venestra confused the hell out of me. Some of the decisions made at the end, like throwing Sol under the bus. There's only a handful of Jedi that would know the truth in this matter. So either she silenced them somehow. There's just a lot of questions about that decision late in the show, to just throw Sol completely under the bus, and fabricate what happened, without saying anything about there's a threat out there. And it just goes back to the Jedi thinking that they are the all-powerful, like there's no one that actually threatens us. I think that's the attitude. So in order to cover it up, or to not seem like there is a credible threat in front of the Senate, is important to her. And I guess there's just some things that I wish I would have got more of in the show. And I realize that, there's time constraints and everything else, but I think in that specific case, I would have liked to see the Jedi Council meet. Like, I would have liked to see that discussion, for her to walk in to a Senate meeting and just announce that Sol was the traitor, so to speak, or the person that snapped, but then was also taken care of. So that was good. Scruffy, I really thought you said you were going to connect. You were going to connect with Kymir when he came naked out of the water. I was waiting on that for you.
That's a real connection there.
The true
come on, skinny
the real
dipping
question.
in a lake.
The real
you guys are from Michigan, lots of lakes. I'm just assuming you've been skinny dipping at some point.
Absolutely. I've been there, done that.
The real question is, did Chimera learned that from his master? Did Plagueis skinny dip for him?
That's a terrifying thought, and I'm gonna have nightmares with that.
That is
Thank you,
a
thank you for that.
disturbing thought. Thank you. That's
Season 2 should have flashbacks.
Way to ruin that. Way to ruin that for me.
I can't believe they don't have a hot spring in that cave. I mean, there's got to be a nice, spa like
One would
setting
think so.
for Plagueis.
Yeah, one would think so.
Yeah,
Right.
but
Yeah, thanks for ruining that for me.
You're
more
welcome.
flashbacks. Don't worry about it. More flashbacks. I think the biggest thing for me is I really hope we get season 2. I think they can build a very similar season, around Chimera more than an Evanosha in season 2. So he's one of the characters that I want to know a whole lot more about, and I hope they get to do more. Because we'll get flashbacks of him and Venestra in season 2, hopefully, and what happened between them. I compared this show to Arrow. If you guys have watched the WB series Arrow, it basically every episode there was flashback moments into something from the past, and every season was built around a different time period of Oliver Queen's past before he came back to become the Arrow. But it was a good and bad thing. It was like it got old after like a couple seasons because they kept going deeper and deeper and unbelievable stuff. But the first few seasons, very intriguing storylines. They could focus around certain characters that meant something during the current time of the show. And I think that they could do a lot of really good things with this show if they get renewed for season 2. So lots of good things to talk about. We can sit here and, like Scruffy said earlier, nitpick all day if we want to, I have certain episodes that I did not enjoy as much as others. I think that's typical of any show. So nothing too bad there. I was surprised that we didn't get any warnings during night, based on the fact that we got a lot of on-screen deaths. I think I complained about it on one of the pods earlier. As much as I love violence in my shows, I would have been mortified if I would have had like my 7 or 8 year old son, who he's not there yet. He's only 3. But if he would have been 7 or 8 and we were sitting down to watch Star Wars and knowing that, hey, there's lightsabers and there's death and everything else, seeing Yord's neck get snapped on screen was a little unsettling and just unexpected from a Star Wars show.
It was definitely a darker Star Wars than we're used to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we got some of it in Obi-Wan, and Kenobi with Vader's. I think we expected Vader to be very violent and some of that stuff, and I was super excited to see Vader, force choke, like helpless victims.
That whole scene right there was awesome. I love that scene because it truly, for the first time, I saw Anakin and Vader in the same person.
Yeah, just seeing some of that stuff on screen for this show, I just wasn't necessarily expecting. But I like some of those more violent scenes. Just didn't expect a neck snap versus a force choke or saber or anything else. So yeah, but other than that,
and the one thing I'm surprised you didn't bring up, Bound Leader, was you didn't get to see your Wookiee fight.
That is super.
Yeah, that was.
We were all a little let down by the Wookiee Jedi that we never saw
to be killed off the way
action.
He was. Yeah, killed off screen. But we got some in the second flashback episode. So
a little bit, but not what we were all hoping for.
Yeah.
Well, and the fact that they filmed the scene, like the scene exists, and it was cut. That's the frustrating bit, is that they went through the trouble of shooting it, and then took it out for some reason.
That's interesting.
I don't know why.
They probably thought it made more of an impact that way or something. But
I suppose that. So for me, the pros, we kind of already talked about the fight itself, the fighting, the choreography. Soul's character, I connected with his sort of performance kind of right away. Those first 2 episodes, kind of pulled me in. I was super into the whole mystery of who's lurking, who's hunting down these Jedi, who's convincing these Jedi to kill themselves with poison and everything like that. And I feel like they set up the kind of that idea or like that path for the story really well in those first two episodes. Not to mention that they were consistent sort of lengths, which for me is a con. Like the inconsistency, you kind of talked about it, Brown Leader, about the production sort of ups and downs. And I feel like having, you know, a 37-minute episode one week and a 28-minute episode another week, and then a 45-minute episode, like there's a lot of inconsistency in the ability to tell the story in a consistent manner, right? Like some episodes you might have more story or more character development, others you have less. It kind of like with episode 6, where you get the Chimere and Osha kind of depth of character development, everything like that. And then Soul and May is a Benny Hill around the ship. And it's like, okay, the contrast, I mean, if that's what you're going for, all right, but that episode's, you know, I said on one of our other episodes, mercifully only like 28 minutes long. And so, and to your point, I think it was you, Brown Leader, earlier saying with Chimere, you know, initially, like the way his character was presented, the way the dialogue was delivered, you know, there was a lot of depth to the character. And then in the very last episode, it was like, Osha, will you be trained? You know, like it was very like deadpan, like delivery. And I was like, wait, you just spent, you know, an episode and a half really developing like the character and like the depth to your character and, you know, the dark side now, and trying to convince Osha to come, you know, join or at least see that side of things in a very sort of compelling way, in a way that was totally opposite to how he tried to manipulate May, which was really, really good. And so there was just kind of an inconsistency in the delivery of the characters that made it kind of challenging to buy into certain ones. Now, one thing now that we're kind of a week removed with May and Osha, and I posted this on Twitter, I'm kind of curious to get your guys' thoughts. So we've kind of talked about how some of the connection to the twins was lost or actually never there to begin with, at least over the, you know, as the story went on. And I began to wonder if it's possible that they were actually not meant to be the focal point, but that they were themselves the Force sort of incarnate, and that we were meant to see all of the characters around them and how they interacted with them. Because throughout the whole series, you have the yin-yang effect of the twins, right? Them dressed in white and black and vice versa. The constant yin-yang iconography with the witches in Kalnaka's hut. Even that last one of the scenes in episode 8, they shot straight down, and it's the two of them opposing, just like a yin-yang, you know, for them to be the balance. And I wonder if they are meant to be like them being the virgins, although I think something came out that said they aren't themselves the virgins, so that's super confusing. But you know, if you look at it like that, in that it's the way the characters, whether it's Yord or Jeki or Soul or Chimere, the way that they interact with them is meant to be more the story and how each one interacts with the Force differently. Maybe that helps explain things, or maybe I'm just trying to find the connectors. I don't know. It's kind of a theory. I don't know if either of you have any thoughts on that.
No, it's interesting. I'll have to go. I'll have to go back and do some rewatches with that kind of theory in mind and see. Yeah.
Oh, that's deep. I never really thought to think of it in that manner, but you bringing it up really puts a different light on it, I guess.
Because with the whole Rashomon concept, right, seeing things from a different point of view, and the way that, you know, the flashbacks, I think, were meant to be from certain angles. I think the whole show, right, is meant to be that. But you could say, one, it's again, if you put May and Osha at the center of it and everybody else's, you know, view of them or the way they interact with them, or more simply put, it's kind of the dark side's view of the Jedi, right? Like, you know, because the entire series, we see the Jedi, you know, Scruffy kind of talked about it, the way that they're shown in such a negative, you know, through a negative lens, or at least a highly faulted or highly flawed lens, right? Whether it's Soul's desire to take a Padawan to the point that he completely ignores common sense and everything like that, or the way that with Vernestra, the way that, you know, she's, and through the council, presumably going to end up covering up or at least spinning what happened in a certain way to try and take pressure off the order. The whole interaction with the children and, hey, you know, we have a right to test force sensitive people. And it's like, whoa, okay, who gave you the right sort of thing, right? And the comics kind of touch on that in phase 2 of the High Republic, where you get the different sects of force users and stuff like that, and how everybody saw the Jedi as gatekeepy with how they used the force, to the point that they created a being or a creature that fed on force users and effectively killed them. And so anyway, so I think, like, if you look at it that way with May and Osha, then it makes a little bit more sense. I think, again, it could be my headcanon. But yeah, so the inconsistent storytelling, like, I feel like there's a really, really strong story here that they tried to tell, and there was just delivery issues, both in how the characters carried things forward, and I think some of the writing decisions and direction decisions. Like, if you're going to have Soul beat Chimera twice, don't have it be he's at the end of his blade both times, and he gets yelled at by Osha the first time and he gets stopped by May the second time. Like, don't set it up that way, right? And stuff like that. So again, it's kind of nitpicky, but I said it at the beginning of the show, I think it feels similar to Book of Boba for me. Like, it's not a bad show, but you go into the story expecting one thing, you know, and then you get an inconsistent story and the outcome is completely different, right? So Book of Boba, you're like, oh, Boba's going to be a badass. He's going to do this, that, and the other. He turns into this, you know, little mini godfather of sorts, and then he disappears for an episode and a half, and it becomes the Mandalorian show, and then he fights Cad, which is cool, right? And then, like, so you have moments that are really cool, right? And riding the Rancor is really cool, and coming out of the Sarlacc is really cool. Same thing with the Acolyte. Like, there are aspects of it that were super cool, and super wow moments, and then in between is like a really kind of inconsistent story. Even though I think the idea is really intriguing, I just think the delivery kind of felt off. So I do like the new characters for what development we got of them. You know, I understand why they didn't develop Yord and Jecki, because they were gonna kill him off in the 4th episode, or fifth episode. I wish we would have gotten the Kalaka fight. You know, but you know, having said that, I am glad that, you know, this felt more like a risky kind of story method of storytelling, but like they kind of put this show out there, as in, like, trying to tell it a different way, and for that, I applaud that. Sometimes when you take risks, they hit. Sometimes not so much.
I mean, it was a good pitch. Like, it was a good pitch.
It was.
I mean,
yeah. And if we get a season 2, I think they can definitely learn from this and make it better. I am curious where the $180 million budget went. There's you know, with the fight choreography and some of the special effects, okay, I can see that. But again, with some of some of the on-site shooting, of course, but then there are other aspects that feel kind of, you know, lost.
well, you know, you get a $500 hammer, $2,000 toilet. You know, it's important stuff.
I laugh because we've had conversations about that. Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
How much was the budget?
Right. And I mean, there's not any like big name stars like before with like Kenobi. It was like, okay, I got to pay Ewan, I got to pay Hayden, I got to pay, you know, these big named actors and actresses. And you don't really have that with this show, at least to the same level. And so I have a feeling
Yoda's
like,
very expensive.
The back of him was super difficult.
The back of the puppet. Yeah.
I feel like they just took Grogu's and Grogu's puppet and put more white hairs on him.
More white hair on him and called it a
Just
day.
repurpose him. We've already got the robot. But I think it leads well into the kind of last topic here is, you know, season 2. We kind of touched on it briefly, but 1, do you think there'll be one? 2, do you want one? and maybe finish with what are you hoping to see if we do get season 2?
Yeah, I'd like to see a season 2. Sure, give me more stories. I'd like to see. Will I think it? Will I think? Do I think it'll happen? Yeah, I think so. I think you'll definitely. Disney's marketing machine will. Definitely gin up the love for it, and I think too. I think if it resonates with anybody, I think it resonates well with the younger fans, because they have not seen as much or expect as much out of the storytelling as prequel or OT generation fans will. We want to see that constant progression. It's kind of why the sequels were a little startling. We wanted, older fans wanted to see more progression in the story, and they just basically did a reboot, to the new generation, and that's fine. But it's so I think they'll definitely run the marketing machine to gin up the love for it in the younger crowd. I think that there's potential there for sure. Yeah, I'd like to see more. What's that backstory between Venestra and Chimere? For sure, I'd like to see more of that. And then they'll have to explore exactly what are May and Osha, since they're not twins, they're not even sisters. They're the same being ripped in two, basically. So, and then whether, and I want to see more arguing about Kiadi Mundi's birthday and
age.
Right?
He's old.
Yeah. So
he's too old. He will not be trained.
I think him trying to improve the population for his species, I think that gives him more life each time. I think it's that's the trick.
That's probably a flashback episode they'll do. They'll dive into that aspect of things.
There we go. Right on.
But as long as it satisfies somebody there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping for a season 2. I'm on the fence on whether it's going to happen at this point. There's so many griping and complaining out there that I think at some point in time, some of that's just going to start to stop this forward momentum that we still have going on, and that worries me because I'm just happy to have new content, even if that new content is in the form of resistance. Just something that keeps people interested. If it creates that new fandom, that new fan base, then great. Let's just keep this thing moving, because at some point in time it's going to run out. And then what am I going to do? I got to
have to watch The Matrix. That's when you watch.
I'm going to have to watch The Matrix and watch The Matrix and Star Trek. And that's just going to bum me out.
There you go. So Disney, please keep making Star Wars for Scruffy so he doesn't have to do that.
And I do agree that key story there between Venestra and Chimere. I'm very interested in that. And I would love to see that piece.
Is it going to me,
John?
Is it my turn?
It's your turn. Yeah, that's the trend. It just kind of goes around the circle, and then it comes to me at the end.
It's a circle. Connects. It's all connected. Yeah, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but I'd like to see a season 2. Low expectations, unfortunately, based on current criticisms. I hope the Disney marketing machine can reinvigorate it, especially with younger fans. I said it before on an earlier pod, but I hope when they do a press tour for season 2, people don't say really stupid stuff that alienates an entire population of fans. It's like press 101. I don't understand why they keep messing this up.
Like when the Anakin blew up the Death Star?
Yeah. Stuff like that.
Basics. Star Wars 101.
Yeah, Star Wars and press tour 101. If you don't know the answer, just don't talk. Oh gosh, it hurts. Anyway, but overall, the Chimere Venestra, I'm actually curious to see how what else we would get out of Plagueis and the relationship between Osha and Chimere goes. Osha and Chimere will lead to the Venestra and Chimere flashbacks, but I also want to see how they repurpose May now that she's kind of a captive of pretty much just Venestra, because she's the only one that knows what really happened, along with the couple other Jedi that were with her on that trip. So kind of curious how they repurpose a Force user, and if they have a way to I don't know if they would want to repair her mind, but there are, I'm sure, something they could do to help her remember some of the stuff. But yeah, super excited. I'd love to get it. I just low expectation that we are going to, but I hope we do.
Yeah, I think so. I actually don't know that. I don't think we're going to get season 2. I think we're going to get Skeleton Crew, which may or may not be doing particularly well in initial screenings. Which, if I'm honest, I don't know that I'm super excited about the series. It just doesn't seem like something for me. I will watch it, but I think that they're going to be putting a lot more focus on the cinema side, on the movie side. They'll probably sprinkle in animation things here and there. I do think the future of Star Wars storytelling is on the animation side. I actually think this would have been an amazing sort of like anime style show, because you kind of get that Japanese feel to certain aspects of it. I could totally see the Acolyte being an anime style show, which would have been really cool. Also allows you to have 12, 15, 16 episodes, and just like Bad Batch, and tell a story in a more drawn out, methodical way that makes more sense, and that sort of stuff. I think that would have been cool. I think with what Bob Iger said about sort of trying to be more selective in how they use their IP, distribute their IP, and given kind of the backlash on this, right or wrong, I think again there are some valid criticisms, but the just blatant bombing, ratings bombing is unnecessary. Is unnecessary, but I don't think that that's going to be particularly helpful. So if we do see it again, I echo kind of all your comments on the primary storylines that they have to explore. I would hope that we would get some more Plagueis, or at least some more backstory in his involvement, even if it's some sort of like, again, in the shadow type thing. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. Real quick, overall grade for the whole show out of 10, real quick. Scruff, you first.
6.
Brownlee?
Yeah.
6.5.
John?
I'm right there with a 6.
Agree. I'm gonna do 6.5 as well. So, all right, it's passing. D's get degrees. Let's go. All right.
So two things I wanted to shout out. 2 little final Easter eggs before we move on. Kudos to them for working in a Beastie Boys reference and a Spaceballs reference. And so there's a tradition in Star Wars now that the species is called Abednedo, and anytime a character, one from those species, is on screen, it's given a name based on a Beastie Boys song. So there was a scene where Vernestra is talking to a senator of that species. It's real quick, and the senator's name is Chawant, from the Beastie Boys. What you want?
I totally forgot about that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so J.J. Abrams had one of those species in the sequels, and its name was Slow-and Low. So it is a thing that exists in the Star Wars. And then the Spaceballs reference was, and I didn't catch it the first till the show was over, and it dawned on me, which was Vernestra's whipping boy Jedi Padawan guy there, Mog. So part man, part dog.
I missed
Mog.
that.
Yeah.
I missed it too. He had to point it out to me. I'm like, oh, I'm so disappointed in myself.
So again, kudos to them for the little. I love the little. It's the details that I appreciate. So, but anyway, wanted to throw that out there.
That's perfect. All right, so that wraps the Acolyte discussion. Do we have some time for Fine Editions segment? If there's anything in particular you have new for your collection this week that you want to, kind of like your collector's corner, we have our Fine Editions. Anything you guys have that you want to show off or want to talk about?
Well, today was comic book day, so I had to run down and get the latest edition of Star Wars. I believe today was the new edition of Vader.
Oh yeah.
I need to figure out where this is going to end. This is out of control, completely out of control, and I got to figure out how I'm gonna sever this.
What the exit strategy is for your comic?
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Exactly. It never seems to end, and that's the problem.
Right on.
So that's pretty much my only addition this week, other than kind of going through some of the stuff that getting ready for ICCC and deciding what needs to go, what needs to be sold, and finding stuff that I didn't know I had, and I'm just get all giddy and excited that it's like I picked up a new thing today, despite of the fact that it's probably been in that tote for 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
It's a good reason to get rid of it. I haven't seen it in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
For me, my podcast notebook of all show notes and everything is finally reaching. I'm finally reaching the back of it. So I did order a new one, and it's Vision-esque.
Nice,
awesome.
Yeah, very very cool design. So that'll be my new notebook for new episodes to come.
Was that Embo on the back? Was that supposed to be like Embo?
No,
like
it's a boba. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, there it is. Yep, I see the Mando helmet now.
Freaking sweet.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That samurai line that I forget who did that samurai line with all the Star Wars characters that came out last year. I think at Comic-Con. That would be cool to see.
What, Bandai's? Bandai did one a while ago.
Yeah,
I don't
maybe
know.
Namco. Namco. Yeah. Yep. John.
No, I did forget. I did. Let's kind of wash. Oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
I did get my Kelly Knox autographed book.
Your nameplate.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I got the Dad Jokes book, but she did put out that if you wanted one, send her a message, and I did, and I got one mailed to me. So
awesome.
Going inside my dad joke books.
Awesome.
Mine. Yeah, I actually picked up some figures today. What did I pick? I did the vintage collection. Who did I get? Oh, Rex. I got Captain Rex from Braca. I saw him on a shelf at Walmart. He just anything Rex, I'm down with. So it was a cool figure. I hadn't seen him yet in person, so I'm like, I will pick this up. And then I picked up the new Vader for the vintage collection, just because you can't go wrong with whatever new Vader they retooled a little bit. Not a whole lot, but that's it's the newest one they came out with for the vintage collection. I normally don't do vintage collection stuff.
You can actually find new figures in stores.
Yeah, I was super surprised, actually. It was probably the first time I've walked into it. Was actually I went to Walmart. I was picking up some office supply stuff for work, and I'm like, well, you know what? While I'm here, I might as well go to the action figures and see what's going on. The Black Series collection they had there was 3 pegs full of Paz Vizsla, and I'm like, I don't need another version of him, Heavy Mando, for those of you that don't know names. But yeah, I don't need another deluxe Heavy Mando figure. But I did pick up a couple of vintage collection figures, which normally I wouldn't do, but I like Vader, I like Rex, any clones really. Those are some of my favorite figures.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. That's just awesome. You can find that stuff in stores. I think we're looking at the same 30 peg warmers we've been looking at now for 2 years.
Oh, yeah. If I see any more Landos out there, I'll let you know. I'll make sure I mail them to you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, please. Please do, because we don't have enough up here.
In fact, I'll buy the ones from my store and return them at yours. That way I don't have to worry about them anymore.
There we go.
Oh, please do. Thank you.
They need company. Misery loves company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so for me, I've got it was New Comic Book Wednesday, so I picked up some of my. Actually, I've got quite a backlog of comics that I picked up today, and then I was at Kohl's yesterday to get a belt, and then I walked over to the toy aisle and I picked up a little Lego set too. So I've got one of the little
Nice.
army builders.
I love that. I love that Lego set. I have that.
So I figure again, it can be a good one for me and the me and my son to build. And he's actually started taking so like the Razor Crest actually usually sits right there in frame, and it is out currently flying around with Red 5 and going on missions. So he's like, "Is that okay, Dad?" I said, "You know what? That's what they're meant for. And if it breaks, I can rebuild it. That's the cool thing about Lego." So now the ones on top, don't touch those, but the smaller ships, go for it. So this will be a nice addition to his minifig play time. So good. Okay. Well, with that, we're going to start to wrap things up. Real quick, you guys want to talk about, where people can find you, listen to you, any sort of other upcoming stuff you got planned?
Absolutely. So Hyperspace Heroes Podcast, you can find it on all the podcatchers, the audio versions. We live stream every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow night we'll be doing this will probably air after tomorrow night's show, but we're quickly approaching episode 100, which will be in mid-August, and we have a cool guest we'll announce as we get closer to that. But yeah, you can find us on all the podcatchers, YouTube, X. We live stream on YouTube, X, and Facebook, and you can find us on the three main socials: Twitter or X, Facebook, and Instagram. I've fallen behind on TikTok, so I'll never catch up to the algorithm at this point, and so that's kind of a lost cause. But yeah, or you can email us directly at brownsquadron@gmail.com.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah. So thank you both for jumping on, and we'll have to set this up again and get DB on as well. Appreciate you guys.
Ask him about cheer camp.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
This one time at cheer camp.
Oh man, I've heard that story already. I don't think we need the sequel, but no, thank you both for coming on and helping us celebrate.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, and congratulations again on 75. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And so we're going to start to bring this to a close. If you guys would do us the honor, along with John, of doing the sign off at the very end, you could join in.
You guys should know the words. It'll be fun.
You know the words at this point, I think. So if you guys want to join in when we do that. So as we bring this episode to close, we want to thank you all for listening. If you made it this far, be sure to follow or subscribe to the show, leave a rating or review, and link up with us on social media. Be sure to check the show notes for links to our social channels. And if you have things you'd like to hear in the future, our DMs are there to slide on into. Check that back catalog of episodes where you're sure to find something you'll enjoy, and share us with your friends. Join us, and together we will rule the galaxy. With that, we're going to bring the episode to close. For Jedi John, Brown Leader, and Scruffy, I'm Obi Sean, and until next time,
may the Force
That's no moon.
be with you.
It's no moon.
that's no moon. There it is.
There we go.
Force be with
May the Force be with you. Yeah.
Perfect.
Force